Hi everyone, Sarah here from the Paper Cut. I'm joining you for Chit Chat Thursday. So let me know if you can see me. Before I get totally going, I just want to make sure everything's working properly. Just let me know if you can see me, hear me. Oh, there's a few comments. Hello from Arizona. Hello. So I think you can hear me. Today we are talking paper. So, of course, because we sell the paper. So the other day I posted on our Facebook page what people, if anybody had any suggestions. And a lot of the suggestions were just different paper weights, what to do with them, what you use for scored cards. So I'm just going to start. And this is a little bit different for me. Usually I'm demoing something. So I might have to go down to the table a little bit. And I also did make some props so I could show you different papers and you could actually see what I'm talking about. But the one thing, and this is like a question and answer, so if you have any questions, let me know. And I know the one question that's going to come up is, Sarah, can you write a sheet on everything that you're talking about? And I will work on that. So I should have a sheet. I should have like a frequently asked questions about paper and stuff. So anyways, but if you have questions, my mom's behind the camera and she will stop me and will answer all your questions. So I have a lot of stuff, so I don't know how much I'm going to get through, so I'm just going to yammer on for quite a while until she tells me I have to stop. So anyway, so the first thing that I'm going to talk about is paper weights, because a lot of the times on Stamp Junkies, I see this question asked a lot about different paper weights, especially when people are ordering the Neenah Classic Crest, because they'll find a really good deal on it and they'll get it and it'll be really cheap stuff. So paper weights, there's cardstock weight and there's text weight, and it really has to do with the GSM, not necessarily the weight, because there's cardstock that can be an 80-pound weight, which the 80-pound GSM is 216, but then there's also an 80-pound text, which is more like your, I consider it like a heavier computer paper, printer paper, copy paper, but heavier. And that 80-pound text is, the GSM is 118. So it's not necessarily, the weight, like people will say 80-pound, but you have to also know what type of paper it is, whether it's the cover weight, which you guys commonly know it as cardstock, or whether it's the text weight, which I consider the printer paper. And like we have our 65-pound cover, which is the GSM is 176, and I do have some notes down here that I keep looking at down there, so because I don't have those memorized. So typically for your like your scored cards, I consider the 65-pound a little bit light. I prefer an 80-pound, especially if I'm layering. A lot of people like the 100-pound also. So the 65-pound I really like to use for my layers and word layers and backing layers and things like that. I like my card bases to be at least 80-pound, sometimes the 100-pound also. So then we have our metallic cardstocks, which I'll talk to you in a minute about those, but those are all, or most of them I should say, are like over 100-pound. So the metallics are usually your very heavyweight. And then the other way that paper is talked about as far as weight is sometimes you'll hear points. Like the Glossy is a 10-point cover. All of the mirror cards, Miri Lavas, all of those are by point. So the 10-point is like close to equivalent to an 80-pound, and I did not look up the GSM on those. I'm just going to bring you to, we're going to go to the table, and she can do a combo view if she wants. I think it's Control-C, Mom. Yep. And I did blow this up, and I just want to talk. So we have our different weights. The 65-pound is your, pretty lightweight. Your 80-pound is your medium weight, and then your 100-pound is the little bit heavier weight. And you can tell this one's a lot thinner, this one is a lot thicker. You can tell that just from the feel of it. Now, this question came up the other day about Pop Tone. What was Pop Tone? Pop Tone is actually the brand of papers. So there's a brand that's called Pop Tone. So it doesn't mean anything except for the specific brand. Like when we talk our metallics, which we'll get to, there's like Curious, there's Star Dream, there's Cocktail. But in our just uncoated cardstocks, these are the three basic weights. And you have different finishes too. So I did make some visuals for you. So for our finishes, we have felt. And I don't know if you're even going to be able to see the finishes.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can see that or not. This is a felt finish. But then we have a linen finish in a number of different colors. And that's just kind of like a little crosshatch weave finish there. And then we have our hop sack finish, which I don't know if you can tell that. But this one is like the basil finish. So basil is actually, they make their paper. We are different. We buy our paper from the paper mills. So like hop sack is the finish of the paper. Linen is the finish. Felt is the finish. So there's different finishes of paper. And these are just really slight textures. And that's just like a preference. And those come in different weights. Well, usually they're 80 pound. The hop sacks are a little bit heavier. But the one thing with finishes is based on the finish, that will make it feel heavier or lighter also. And I think whatever they put the paper through a roller, and that gives it the finish. And usually it's a little bit smoother on one side. And that breaks down the paper a little bit, the paper fibers. So then they might feel a little bit thinner, even though it's an 80 pound. The 80 pound felt will feel a little bit thicker than the 80 pound linen. And I think that's just because of the rollers that it goes through in order to give it the specific finish. Craft papers. Just want to touch on that because we do see a lot of people on Stamp Junkies, or a lot of people on some of the sites, are always looking for this Desert Storm. It's a brand, so it's a Nina paper. It's an 80 pound. It is our fossil. So our fossil is that Desert Storm. But when people say craft, there's a wide variety of craft papers. So we have the fossil, which is considered a craft. We actually have one called a craft. These are both very smooth. And they're 80 pound. Now this one, the Grocer Craft, is a raw finish. So raw meaning I think it does not go through any finishing process to give it this super smooth feel of the craft and the Desert Storm. It also, even though it's an 80 pound paper, it feels much heavier than the 80 pound smooth craft and the 80 pound Desert Storm. So when people call and say I need craft paper, there's really a wide range of what people consider craft. The Grocer Craft I actually consider your brown bag paper, but Desert Storm, if you're looking for that, is our fossil paper. So I do want to talk about whites, which I've talked about whites before. Let me get my green mat down in order to talk about whites. We have a lot of whites. So our basic white, though, is our Cougar Opaque. It's a super smooth. All of our envelopes are done with this Cougar Opaque. Anything that I use, or all of our card bases, like for our die cuts, are made out of the Cougar Opaque. Usually it's the 80 pound though. So we have the 100 pound Cougar Opaque and we have the 80 pound Cougar Opaque. People tend to confuse this with, hang on a second. They confuse our Cougar with this Basis white. So when people are ordering, sometimes they see the word basis and they think it means basic. So actually the Basis is a brand name. So, and it's got a slight grit to it. and you can see that it's not as bright white as our Cougar. So any of our card bases, die cuts, are made out of the Cougar, which it's just a super nice stamping surface. It's a super smooth, it works for your Copics. It's not, they don't talk about it a lot for Copics, but this is what I use for all of my Copic markers, because I don't get bleeding. Well, depending on your ink pad, you also have to have a good ink pad, but it's just a very good stamping surface, this Cougar Opaque. So super smooth, works with your Copics, and any of our envelopes, our A2, A6, A7, they all match this Cougar paper. So if you order the basis white, which some people like that because it has a little bit of a gritty feel, it's just not super smooth, but your envelopes will be this nice bright white, and the basis is a little bit not as bright. So let me just show you some of our other whites and why you might want those. So we have our Pop Tone, which is our 100-pound white. So again, if you're not looking for a stark white, there's the 100-pound Pop Tone, which again, the Pop Tone is the brand. Okay, it means nothing else besides the brand. Then we have our Via White, which if you don't want the 100-pound, the Via White it's a smooth, again, not as super smooth, and the Via, again, is the brand. So there's just different whites. Now we have the Nina Classic Crest. This is the one that everybody talks about for Copics. We have it in the 110-pound weight. They do make an 80-pound weight, but we don't carry the 80-pound, we just carry the 110. So this is a really heavyweight cardstock, and you can just feel the difference. And then the even step up is the 120-pound Purely Simple paper. Again, not as bright white. It is 120 pounds, so it is quite thick. And your Copics don't bleed through on this one. So this one is really nice for your Copics. This one I've tried watercoloring on though. I don't prefer the watercoloring on this one. So let's go, so I've talked about the whites. So anyways, if you're looking for just a basic all around good white, the Cougar Opaque in either the 100-pound or the 80-pound. Let's talk about it. Well, a couple other specialty whites, which if you know something that I don't, because I don't do all of the techniques. So if you do some techniques and you like them better with some papers, by all means speak up, or if you have a question, let me know. Glossy. When I first started stamping, and that was, oh geez, 1996. So a long time ago, Glossy was like the big thing. And it does have the gloss coat on it, chrome coat Glossy, and that's a 10 point. So it's equivalent to approximately an 80-pound. And then there's also a Dell Gloss, which these both have finishes on them. The Glossy I use a lot for, or we used to use a lot when we used to do this, for resist brayering. You get really crisp images with the Glossy because it is coated. Your inks might not dry immediately on the Glossy, and because it has the gloss finish, people call it like a slick surface. So it's, your stamps might tend to move on there a little bit. So you have to, that's where the stamp position, or not the stamp positioner, the platforms come in handy, because you just go straight up and straight down. The Dell Gloss. Now this paper has a finish to it, and they say it's a clay coating. So it's just got a Dell Gloss. It's kind of equivalent to almost like a photo paper, a matte photo paper. But that's the finish that's equivalent to it. It does work really well. Both of these work really well with when you're coloring on your stamps and you're stamping, you're coloring with a dye-based ink and you're stamping on the paper. You want to hold your stamp on there for about 10 seconds, let the ink absorb off of the stamp onto the paper. you'll see Local King will use this paper a lot for their bigger images. Do we have a question? No, no questions? Just all listening quietly. And I'll do some embossing on there, or just if I like the look of the gloss. It also, you can color with your Copics on the Dell Gloss too. So your inks will tend to stay up a little bit off the paper because it has the slight coating, where your uncoated papers, which is what I showed initially, they'll soak in right away. These will stay on top for a little bit, but they eventually will soak in. So those are the Gloss and the Dell Gloss. The Gloss we have in 3 colors. These are 12 points, so that's our silver gloss, our gold gloss, and our black gloss. Which these aren't like super shiny, and that's going to get us to the metallics. So they're a little bit shiny, but I consider them a little bit duller than some of our metallic papers. But let's go really quick to...
They're just learning and soaking it in. It's good information.
So let's go to our watercolor, because we have 3 different watercolors. Okay, so we have our 100-pound light duty watercolor. This is just a smooth surface. This is not technically a watercolor paper. It's not, from the paper mills, it's not called a watercolor paper. But we started with it years ago with some different stamping techniques. And so it doesn't, you can't do heavy watercoloring on it. It's meant for light duty watercoloring, like some of your spritzing, some of your just light watercolors. But it will pill up if you brush on it too hard, and it will get wrinkly if you put too much water on it. So it's not meant for a lot of water. Now, the one thing that I can't talk about is the Tim Holtz inks, the distress inks, because I think I'm the only person on the face of the earth that probably does not have distress inks. And I probably should get some and play with them, because I've seen some backgrounds and they're really cool. So, but I've heard that the watercolor works good for that, as long as you don't saturate it too much. So that's the 100-pound light duty watercolor. Now if we put it next to our Cougar, you're going to see that it's not as stark white, and I don't know if you can see the difference down there. So the Cougar is the brightest white. So we have our light duty watercolor. Then we have our 110-pound ultra white felt. This is very absorbent, but it can take quite a bit of water, and it can take more brushing, which I do have a sample, and I am going to show you a little bit of that. And then we have, but it does have a finish to it, so it's got like your felt finish. So your stamps that are more solid, if you want to do them on here, I would definitely recommend doing them on a platform, because then you can stamp them a couple times to get in all of the little nooks and crannies in this watercolor, because it is a felt finish. And then we have our Stonehedge cold press watercolor. So this is more of a premium artist watercolor. It's 140-pound. This can take brushing really well. It's not going to pill up. It takes lots of water. But the one thing with the Stonehedge is you can't emboss on it. You can try. And if you get it to work, I really want to know how you do it. I've tried embossing, and it seems like your ink, which I use my Versamark, when I use my Versamark, and it seems like the ink soaks into the paper so fast that when you put your powder on it, it just kind of doesn't stick. So I don't tend to emboss on my cold press watercolor paper. You can emboss though on your Royal Ultra White felt. So I've just got 2 things here. What time are we at, Mom?
You are 21 minutes in.
Oh, okay. I better go fast. Ooh. So just really quick, and I'm not going to finish these. This one is our cold press, and I stamped it with stays on ahead of time. So then you can put a lot of color and a lot of water down on there, and you can really make that move. So it moves really easily. And I can drag that all over the place. This one I did emboss, so it gives a really cool look if you emboss it with white, and then you just do a resist over the top of it, and you can blend those colors together. So this one was the Royal Ultra White Felt. This one was your cold press, and I could blot the water off of there, and it's going to dry nice and flat. Anyways, I'm just going to did that really quick, and I'm going to go on because I wanted to get to metallics and Yupo. So metallics, and I want to get to a couple new things too. So metallics, people will call on the phone and say, do you have shimmer paper? So it's hard to know what people mean by shimmer paper. There's the metallic papers, which these are the cardstocks, and there's different brands. So we have our Star Dream, we have our Cocktail, and we have our Curious. Those are our three biggest sections of metallic cardstocks, and the Curious comes in the really heavyweight 111 pound, and then there are some 92 pound. We also have our 130 pound So Silks, and then the one that's a little different is the embossed metallic ones. So they have a little bit of a finish on them, and one thing, they only come in white, but one thing that you can do with them is you can drag your ink pad across them to color them.
7 minutes left.
Okay, so when I color them, I just kind of wipe it off with a paper towel. Now I do stamp on the top of the embossed metallics with Stays On, but not all metallics are equal, okay, as far as your inks drying. Your most stamper-friendly papers are the Curious. Your inks dry fairly fast on those. And then your Star Dream. Your Cocktail, some of them dry and some of them don't. I have a real trouble with the Versa Clairs, getting those to dry.
Question. Do you still sell the shimmer paper that you still sell the shimmer paper that you would sell at shows, 10 packs for $10?
We do. Well, those were like layering swatches. Those are the 65 pound metallics. Those are on our sale page, but we don't have them as 10 packs for $10. So I'll look at that. We have a few of them left, and those are just on our website. Those are 65 pound Star Dream metallics. They were only available in 7 colors, and now I think we only have 4 left. Yeah, those are the 65 pound Star Dream. So anyways, with any of your metallics, you always want to test your inks. Like Curious, your dye-based inks will dry on them. Star Dream, your dye-based inks will dry. That might take a little bit longer. And Cocktail, you just have to test, what's going to dry. You can always heat set to dry or emboss to dry. So I want to get onto our specialty papers. So specialty papers.
5 minutes.
Okay. And then I did want to answer one question about the Yupo paper. So specialty papers. We have our mirror card. Oh, that's bright. Oh, and that one's bright too. So we have our brushed silver. These are all silvers. We have our holographics. We have our Miri Lava, and we have our mirror card, along with our Miri Sparkle. So these are all of our specialty type papers. One question was, how do you know what to use on your cards? On my cards, I like to just use little sniblets of our specialty papers. So I'll use a strip, like this is the Miri Sparkle.
You're upside down.
Oops, sorry. But I'll use just little strips. I won't use I usually don't go big in your face mirror card. I'll use them for words. I'll use them for backers. I'll use them just, as little backers behind. This is our silver glossy. I will use my metallics. So this is a So Silk metallic. This is one of our linen metallics, but then I did back it with just a little bit of your lava. And one thing you can do if you don't want to waste all that lava, if you're die cutting something, you can die cut it out of the middle, use it as a layer, because then you've still gotten your die cut out of it, but then you used it as a layer when you're only seeing just a tiny border. But I tend to use my metallics, my specialty metallics, just as a little extra thing on a card. Just a strip, a little border, a die cut word. This is our glitter paper.
Upside down.
Upside down, I keep forgetting. This is in my floral class card, floral class that's coming up too, or Colors of Spring class.
3 minutes.
Okay, one more thing I'm going to, well, two more things. Somebody had asked how you get, Yupo is our last paper. So that's our alcohol ink paper, and that's for not for coloring, okay, because it's for doing your alcohol inks like on your little dauber. But somebody had asked how to emboss with your, on the Yupo paper. So I'm going to do that really quick, then I'm going to show you something new, and then I'm going to get off. So I'm inking with Versamark, and I'm just going to stamp my little guy.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Mom's telling me I got 2 minutes. But when you are embossing on the Yupo, you want to make sure to always hold your heat tool and let it warm up before you start going on your project. Then, when you emboss your Yupo, so you always want to warm it up, you just want to do little spurts. So little spurts until you see it melt, and then you're going to back it away. So you just want to emboss just a tiny bit at a time, because if you do it too much, I'm going to show you what happens. And it's a fine line, because this is a plastic. If you do it too much, it will crinkle up. Okay, so that was just my Yupo is actually a plastic for alcohol inks. You can emboss on it, but you have to be very careful. You saw how I heated it up and then just did small bursts in order to emboss.
1 minute.
Okay, 1 minute. New stuff. Yay! We have some new metallics, which I don't know that you'll be able to tell how pretty they are. And this is just a sneak peek. We don't have them yet. These are Curious metallics that are coming. Chartreuse, Magma, Chestnut, Peacock, White Silver, Electric Blue, Abyss, and Eucalyptus. So those are new colors coming that I will be using in class. But then we have these ones called Star Dream 2.0. Hopefully you can see the sparkly on there. Okay, this one's called Saturn. There's 4 of these coming. This is 126 pound. This one's called Venus.
5.
And this one's
4,
called Neptune.
3.
So I have to go now.
Done.
Thanks
Bye.
for joining me.